How to Teach Bravery, episode 603. Thank you, Advancement Courses, for sponsoring today's show. Stay tuned at the end of the show for a special discount that will let you save 20% on engaging and meaningful online development.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
Can you help kids be brave? We are talking to Michelle Cottrell-Williams. She's been a social studies teacher since 2006. Now she's in instructional technology. And Michelle, you're quite fascinated with this idea of vulnerability and bravery. Where did that come from?
Well, I think it actually came from myself, right? My own experiences as just, I guess, a student, a teacher, and just a person kind of moving through the world, right? I was probably teaching for about 5 years before I started to really think about students' sense of identity and belonging in the classroom. I had always been a student who loved being at school. School was designed for someone like me. And so I always, even as a teacher, my first few years, just assumed other people felt the same way that I did in school. And so it took a few years, real work on myself, but also with students to realize that not everybody was like me and nobody needed to be like me either.
I love that because since I came from the business world, there's a big mistake people make in business. They think they're marketing to themselves. And if you think you're marketing to yourself, you're going to make massive mistakes because you're not marketing to yourself. And wouldn't you say that if we think we're teaching ourselves, we also are going to make a mistake?
Absolutely.
Because we may teach some kids like us, but there's going to be a lot of kids nothing like us.
Absolutely. Well, especially as a white female educator, I'm one of 83% white teachers in the country, but our student population is rapidly diversifying. And so if I try to teach all of my kids the way that worked for me, I'm not going to be able to reach them.
So Maya Angelou has amazing quotes, lots of them, but she said, without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency. We can't be kind, true, merciful, generous, or honest because, and then I'm going on my own here, because truthfully, it takes courage to be different. It takes courage to be that teacher who says, all the other teachers are throwing the book at a kid and really being firm. And you're like, okay, let's back up here. Maybe this child needs mercy and grace because there's something going on in their life that maybe we don't know about. Or why did this behavior change? It takes courage to be generous or even to be honest. So how do you encourage kids to be brave in a world that kind of wants people to conform?
Yeah. And I would add to what you said to say it takes courage and bravery to speak up for other people, but I think it takes even more to speak up for yourself, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so, I can speak and advocate for my kids, but then when they leave my room, I'm not there with them, right? So it is essential that I help them see that they have a voice, that they have the courage and the bravery and the value to be able to advocate for themselves. And honestly, the biggest thing that I do is work with them until they believe that they belong, right? I don't have the quote in front of me, but I know Maya Angelou also talked about the need to belong, that I don't think that you can be brave unless you believe that you belong in the space. And so I spend the beginning of the school year especially intentionally working with kids to help them believe that I believe they belong there, because that's what made school so easy for me, was that I looked around me and I could tell that I fit. My teachers looked like me, my classmates looked like me, and school was easy. And so I didn't have any doubt that I belonged there. And so part of this journey I went on as a teacher, realizing that all students weren't like me, was also coming to realize that many, many students also didn't believe that they belonged in school and in the classroom. And so the most simple thing that I do is build relationships with my students and get to know them beyond the person that they bring when they walk into my classroom, get to know them beyond the papers that they submit by having conversations with them and by telling them any chance that I get. I see you, you matter, and you belong.
And, I was one of those kids that I didn't feel like I belonged. I still struggle with that. One of the things I try to, you talk about vulnerability, and I always tell my story, my middle school story, which was a hard story. I talked about it in episode 500, so I won't go into it now. But Mary Tyler Moore said, you can't be brave if you've only had wonderful things happen to you. And I think that one thing I try to bring to my classroom is that, hey, all of us have problems. All of us have struggles. We all fit in. There's a Christian song, "We're broken together." We are all broken, have problems in some ways, but we're all in this together because none of us are perfect. And just get rid of that facade that anybody has a perfect life. Because even the kids that feel like they fit, do they really have a perfect life?
No. Right. I certainly didn't. But for me, school was a place where things felt good. Things felt okay. And so I don't need to know, as a teacher, as the adult, I don't need to know the intricacies of my students' personal lives outside of school. If that's something that they share with me, that's great. And I can be there as a caring adult in their life. But I don't need to know those things to know that everyone has things, and that I want to create a space that feels normal to others, whatever that normal looks like for them, right? A place that they can set down a burden for an hour and just breathe and be without judgment. And so we do a lot of work in the classroom with accepting each other as we are. One of the things that I see educators say or talk about a lot is imagining the potential in our students and imagining who they can become. And that actually really kind of rubs me the wrong way, because thinking from the perspective of my kids, I don't think that what they need is someone to imagine that someday they can be great and wonderful. What they need is to be seen as they are today and valued and known that right now they're already wonderful.
Yeah. And this past year I had a student, 7th grader, who died. And we knew it was coming. And I totally shifted my thinking from, you're going to thank me when you're 23. And I still say that there's some things they're not going to understand why I do or why I push them. However, that there is joy and beauty in every day. And the simple fact that you're here and I'm here makes this a magical moment.
Yeah. And you are good enough exactly as you are right now.
There's so many quotes on bravery here, but we need to kind of finish up. But I am going to quote one of your favorite people, Brene Brown, that you can choose courage or you can choose comfort, but you cannot choose both. How do you think this fits with what you're saying about, is encouraging bravery uncomfortable for a teacher? And does it require courage on the teacher's part to encourage bravery?
Yes, absolutely. For several reasons. But the first thing that pops into my head is just thinking about when I started advocating for my students and trying to be not the teacher I thought they needed, but the one that they actually needed when I asked them. My relationships with my students got so strong and so wonderful. And other teachers in the building saw that and made judgments about me for whatever reasons that didn't feel kind or fair to me. And so I think one of the most scary things, I suppose, about being brave for students and teaching them bravery is that not everyone sees it the same way that you do. And you're going to get some pushback that you weren't expecting from places that surprise you.
Well, bravery and complacency don't go together. Bravery and conformity don't go together. So when you're encouraging bravery, you're encouraging individuality and you're encouraging uniqueness. And if we truly want to get past the factory mentality that every kid is alike, then we have to be brave, because then every child is different. And that takes us to a different space as a teacher, because that means every teacher is different and we can't be scripted, because we have to bring our unique selves to the classroom. So bravery is a challenge challenge because it promotes individuality.
And it's scary because you have to share power with the students and you have to let go. And when you let go, you don't know what's going to happen. And that is really scary too.
So as we finish up, we could dive in deeply into this, but why don't you give all of our remarkable educators out here who say, you know what, I want my classroom to be a more brave place where we're brave and we tackle things that are difficult, but we also are uniquely ourselves. What are some readings that you recommend?
Well, I definitely take a look at Brené Brown. And if you're not a big reader, then just jump right to Daring Leadership, because I think she sums up all her earlier books really well in that one. But if you are, go all the way back to The Gifts of Imperfection and start there chronologically. I think that's a great place to start. I think Robin DiAngelo is another great one to read. She wrote White Fragility last year and talk about needing to be brave and courageous in talking about issues of race and racism and how that impacts our students and our schools. I would say those would be my top two to start with.
Okay. I want to echo back something Michelle said that, Michelle, I think this is profound, and I'll probably put it in the show notes as a quote. She said, I don't need to know those things, talking about all the personal aspects of a child's life. We don't have to know those things to know that everyone has those things. And I think that is the line here that makes people afraid of bravery, because they're like, I don't want to be in the personal business of all 50, 70, 150, 250 kids I have, but you don't have to be to know that there is much more there under the surface than they're showing you. And that truthfully, I have found in my experience that most of us feel in some way that we don't fit in. We're looking for our place. We're looking for a home maybe that we haven't reached yet or something. But bravery is part of being an excellent educator and part of having an amazing classroom. So thanks for this conversation, Michelle.
Yeah, you bet.
It's a new year, and that means it's time to plan your professional development with advancement courses. They offer over 240 online graduate-level PD courses in 19 different subject areas for busy K-12 teachers just like you and me. Because these courses are online and self-paced, you can take them anywhere, anytime, with up to 6 months to complete. Right now, my listeners and blog readers can save 20% off each course. Just use the code COOL20. That's $120 per graduate credit hour or $160 for 50 clock hours. Go to advancementcourses.com/CoolCat now. These courses are available for graduate credit through CAEP and regionally accredited university partners, or for continuing education units that meet your state requirements. I love these courses because they are practical and you can create things to use in your classroom now. So go to advancementcourses.com/CoolCat and use the coupon code COOL20. Never stop learning.